Well, rookies, week 12's in the books. Jeff, not going too good, 2-4 on premium picks. Very disappointing, but 11-5 straight up, bringing my straight up record to 109-71. How was your week?
So I was 7-9 on straight up and 2-2 premium. So it wasn't a great week.
Yeah, well, you can get all our picks analysis at rookiesbeatbookies.com, where you can get the rest of the season for $75. Rookies Beat Bookies is up on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and we continue to put out content on those sites. So if you want to hit us up, go ahead and hit us up, and we will get you through the rest of the season and into the playoffs. Where last year we had a really good playoff run. Hey, welcome to historic matchup weekend from the 60s with the Browns taking on the Rams, Chiefs and Packers, Cards and Steelers, Dolphins and Commanders. 6 teams on bye this week with the Ravens, Bills, Bears, Raiders, Vikings, and Giants out, and 2 teams going into bye in week 14, the Cards and the Commanders. Interesting week. Last week, only 4 dogs won straight up, and the same 4 dogs covered ATS, indicating the favorites held the day, actually. 7 out of 16 home teams won, continue the trend that playing at home means almost nothing until the playoffs. And it was I think it was 9-8, or I'm sorry, 9-6 to the over. So we had more overs than unders. So a little bit of a change. Jeff, is this week's teams, is this when they start tanking, or are we a few games out from there?
I think we're a few games out from there. I think for the next few weeks, we're still identifying the true statuses of each team. So cream rises to the top. There will be that middling team, and then you'll also start to see who's truly in the bottom 4 in the league and looking for that top pick.
Yeah. Is it going to go deeper than 4 this year, Jeff? There seems to be some pretty average teams out there.
Right. Right now, I mean, the only teams in the mix for a true difference-making player that might tank, I think there's only going to be about 4. I think there are, a bunch of middling teams that will continue to play hard because they're not really incentivized to tank.
Yeah, not yet. Well, Reich and 2 assistant coaches are out in Carolina. How will that change affect the Panthers? Last year they began winning. They went 7-10 after a 1-4 start. Is that going to happen again? I'm not sure with the additional coaches out. Looks like they're going to put in a special teams coach as the head coach. Walker is doubtful tonight. Likely will not go. Haynes, the guard of the Seahawks, is out. Levis was limited in practice for the Titans. Burks is back from concussion protocol for the Titans, so that's good. Judy is questionable, didn't practice Wednesday. Mims for the Broncos is also questionable. CJ Stroud has a thigh and should go. Dell with a calf and Schultz with a hammy, so watch them closely given the 3.5-point spread. Allen did not practice on Wednesday for the Chargers. Center Andrews is questionable with a foot for the Pats, along with 9 other players on the Pats defense that were limited on Wednesday at practice. Watch Brown for the Cards with a foot, Marquez Brown. I'm concerned about the number of injuries on the Dolphins this week, despite having an extra day. As Hill, Holland, Lamb, and Moser did not practice, and Wednesday there were 9 limited. 2 is questionable, but a full participant in practice with some type of laceration. For the Bucks, David Dean and Green did not practice on Wednesday. DTR is in concussion protocol for the Browns as Flacco took the snaps. Jones and Dillon did not practice for the Pack, and they had 7 players limited, but they had them last week limited, and they beat the Lions. Jeff, thoughts on coaching change and injuries going into week 13 that we need to keep in mind?
Well, that injury list seems like it's probably wearing out your throat, because that is a long list of injuries. This year has been really bad. So it's really impacting my analysis. I see at least 4 games this week that are pointing me statistically in one direction, but injuries point me in the other way. And then as far as coaching changes, probably not as big of a deal this year. I think there's probably 10 coaches that will turn over by the off season. So if you do it during midseason, it's probably not going to have the super impact on a team. It's just not that striking this year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Pierce was an upgrade to McDaniels though for the Raiders.
They hated McDaniels, yeah. So
Yeah, so
they feel freer.
I don't know that they hated Reich.
Right.
I
He
don't
just
know.
wasn't any good. Kind of like Staley. I think if they got rid of Staley, I wouldn't see a huge bump in LA. Maybe if Kellen Moore took over and did some weird things, but yeah, I don't think there's anything that's going to be a relief to the players that they're suddenly going to galvanize. And
so the other thing, Jeff, I think we got to think about is so there's clearly a diffusion of quarterback talent in the NFL beyond about 10 or 12 players.
Yep.
And my question is, are we having a diffusion of coaching talent in the league as well? It just feels like, I don't know. I don't, there's no like, no one's making me like happy. You know, I mean, obviously the Eagles made a great choice with their head coach, but their coach also inherited a great team. You know, the Vikings coach, I think he's done a pretty good job given his talent, but they didn't do well in the playoffs, and they're probably not going to make it this year with Cousins out. So what do you think about that, Jeff?
so I think there is a huge turnover in philosophy. There's a coaching tree of the Shanahan disciples, and then McVay, things like that kind of group that is kind of revolutionizing things, like in Miami, like in LA. So I think there's a lot of old school coaches that are just getting left behind.
But are the new ones coming up is the question.
I don't see a lot of potential for next year. I don't see any great, next coaches that haven't already arrived. You got Miami is probably the latest great hire, but even Sirianni in Philadelphia, I think it has a lot to do with the roster. I mean, he was let go as an assistant for the Chiefs, and then he goes and does a bang up job for Philadelphia. So I think a lot of it is talent and philosophy. It's just a style of play, and analytics is probably a big piece of it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're too analytical now. I think that I don't know. I do know this. If you lose your starting quarterback, you're pretty much done. And we saw that last week with the Bengals. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. Hey, but we're going to kick off the week with the Titans hosting the Colts, and our home dogs by 1 point, over and under set at 42 and a hook. In week 5, the Colts won at home by 7, and the odds makers are giving the Colts the advantage here as they're on the road in Tennessee. Going back to 2020, the Titans lead the series 5-2, and they won the last one at home in 22. The Colts are coming in with the 8th best scoring offense at 24 a game, but also giving up 24 a game for the 27th best in the league, and basically at the bottom. The Titans D is the better unit here and feels like they get it done here at home. Jeff, who do you like in this one of this meddling teams? I think we both call these two middling teams.
They are middling, definitely. I'm looking at a pretty close matchup here, but Tennessee is getting my analytical nod. And I also think, like the Shaq Leonard release this last week, I know that a lot about that because Dallas is looking at him. I think that's an obvious sign that they're just focused on the youth movement. So I'm not sure that's going to galvanize a locker room and make them play super hard. So I'm going Tennessee in this one.
I am too, Jeff. Next up, we have the Chargers traveling to New England to face off against the struggling Pats. Chargers come in favored by 5.5, and the over-under set at 40 and a hook. Interesting, the public money is 58-42 on the side of the Pats. Will Greer was signed to the practice team for the Pats. I don't know if you caught that. Zappe and Cunningham took the snaps this week and practice. Likely Jones is done in New England. Might as well keep him as healthy as possible and try to get some value in a trade next year. 48 degrees at game time with a pretty high chance of rain. The Pats have lost due to lack of offensive production, scoring 13 a game all season. Not all that is at Jones's feet. But I think the quarterback coming in a new office and get a spark. I know Zappe did that last year. Give me the Pats here, Jeff. I like them. Jeff, did the Chargers get it done in New England?
Well, I'm going to go Chargers to get it done straight up. But I agree that New England's going to have a little extra spark this week. And I do think, by the way, that these are two teams that are going to be among the 10 head coaching vacancies at the end of the year. I don't think either head coach is coming back. So I know there's a lot of disgruntled players in New England. It makes me a little nervous. So I am going the Chargers to win, but New England should keep it close.
Yeah, I'm going up with the upset on this one. Hey, the Lions travel to Big Easy to take on the Saints and look to end the giveaways that cost them last week, and almost the Bears game as well, if you remember that the week prior. Since 2019, the Saints are 8-6 with rest disadvantage, and Detroit is just 53% with rest advantage, so almost even with the fact that the Detroit played on Thursday. Detroit is favored by 4 and the over-under is 47. The Saints are trying to stop a skid as they have lost 2 winnable games to Minnesota and Atlanta, and to try to avoid falling too far behind the division leader. Clay Martin's crew will be officiating the game, the second lowest penalties so far this year. This is a bad spot for Detroit and will need Goff to play error-free to win and cover. I like the Saints positionally here and expect them to win and stay in the hunt. Jeff, I know you love the Lions. Do you love them this week in New Orleans?
I'm going to keep with my love, even though they have disappointed the last 2 weeks. I think most of the disappointment has been a little bit of Goff being exposed. They're asking him to do a little bit much. He just needs to be a bus driver, and he can do that very well. But if you push him to do more, he's turnover prone. So if they can just dial that back, just let him bus drive another week, I think Detroit gets this done.
All right, we're going opposite here. Next up, the Jets are home dogs to the Falcons, -2.5. Falcons are favored with the over-under set at 34. The game will be cold and wet. The Falcons will not be able to push the ball downfield against the arguably the best defense in the league. The Jets' running game will be able to get some traction against the Falcons' run D, open up the pass for as little as they can. The game also feels like it gets over the 34 points, in my opinion. Jeff, does Rodgers at practice give the New York any hope?
That has been a medical miracle and a little bit of a confusing message by him pushing to get back. I mean, they are not a playoff favorite. They're not a Super Bowl contender. I'm not sure what he's thinking for this season. It's great that he came back so soon. But I don't think the Jets are going to get any major motivation from that either. I'm going to stick with Atlanta. I've been favoring them a little bit this year. I think they're underperforming, but I do think they've got some talent at the skill positions. I'm going to stick with them this week.
All right, that's 3 games we're opposite on for sure. Let's see if we get back on track between you and I on this next one. The Cards travel to face the 7-4 Steelers. Yeah, I said it, 7-4. This Steelers team is like the Giants of last year or the Vikings. The Steelers' offense has scored over 20 points in 5 of 11 games, and their defense is great. Awesome defense. The offense should be better at home against the 31st defense, giving up points this season in the Cards. The Steelers are favored by 5.5. The over-under is 41. And still the public is 53-47 on the Cards at this point in the season on the spread. If you can take a side bet with the Steelers, anything over 22 is likely a good bet here, as the Cards are giving up 27 a game. I like Pittsburgh here to win and cover. Jeff, can the Cards win on the road?
So I think the Kyler Murray allure is what keeps a little bit of the extra money coming their way. I think Pittsburgh covers this. Arizona's not that good, and Kyler is exciting, but not a real difference maker at this point in his career with this team. So, yeah, I think Pittsburgh takes this.
All right, there we're back in agreement. I was worried there for a minute. I thought I was way off this week. Hey, the Dolphins traveled to DC to take on the Commanders. They're favored by 9.5, and the over/under is set at 49 and a hook. For my first free pick of the week, the only free pick, take under 49.5 Dolphins and Commanders. This thing isn't getting over. The Commanders' offense is struggling. The Miami team is coming in banged up on offense, and add in a wet, cold Sunday, and the recipe is the under the total. The Dolphins' D has held opponents to 21 points, 13 and 13 the last 3 weeks. They've gotten a lot better. Their offense is going to slow down with the injuries. This thing's getting under that 49.5 in a cold, wet game in DC. Jeff, how do you see this one playing out?
So I see this exactly like Vegas sees it. I have no leaning one way or the other statistically. It's a 0 difference. So 9.5 was perfect. The point spread over under is within a point. I think they have nailed this game. The only thing that concerns me, and I think I would agree with you, Miami's injuries are probably going to skew my analysis a little lower. So I do think it's probably going to be a little tilted towards Washington and the under.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the under for a free pick, and you heard that here. Game of the week, we have the Texans hosting the Broncos, and yes, I say this is the game of the week. This is going to be a good one. They're favored by 3.5 at home with the over/under set at 47 in the hook. The Texans lost a close one last week to the Jags, while Denver comes in on a 5-game win streak, looking to keep their playoff hopes alive. 69% of the public money is on Denver, and the reason is clear that the defense is much better than their stats indicate, mainly due to the slow start in the 70-point game they had against the Dolphins. So the stats just don't put their defense better in better standing. But overall, they're a much better defense than they were at the beginning of the season. Dylan Schultz being questionable does not bode well. It looks like the offense, it looks like CJ is also questionable due to a thigh, but he will definitely play. Meanwhile, Judy and Mims are questionable for the Broncos. Denver leads this series since 2016, 3-1, and only one of those games got over 40 points. So 47.5 seems a bit too many this late in the season. Jeff, I like the points in the Broncos despite the memes of Texans breaking Broncos. Not this week. Sean extends it to 6 in a row. Jeff, which team moves to 7 wins out of this season?
I'm going with you on this one again. I'm glad we're back on track. Denver's defense has definitely turned a corner. I don't know what was going on early in the season, but they're back to what I expected this year. And I think Russell Wilson has just settled into a good groove with Sean Payton. He's not the old Russell Wilson, but he's good enough. And CJ Stroud, I think, is really good with a bright future, but I don't think he can carry the team enough right now. So I'm going with you on this one with Denver.
Yeah, I think the Texans get thrown off. There's that meme. All right. Next up, the Panthers travel to Tampa to take on the Bucs. The Bucs are favored by 5.5. The over/under set at 37. The trend has been fire your coach, and the team responds. Last year, the Panthers fired Matt Rule after a 1-4 start, then went 7-10, playing much better the rest of the season. Not sure they get the same results going to their special teams coach, and the firing of 2 assistant coaches with Reich. Meanwhile, the Bucs have lost the last 2, but have been in almost every game they've played. This is not they are the best 4-7 football team in the league. I like the Bucs to win, but I'm staying away from the spread, and I like the over. Jeff, does Carolina play well with another interim head coach?
I do think they've exhausted that turnaround. I think the Matt Rule change was a little bit of a spark. This one's just going to seem more hopeless to them. So I don't think they get a big lift there. I'm going Tampa Bay, and this is probably the one game I would fade more to the over than anything else this week. It's not typically where I bet, but I think over and Tampa in this game.
Yeah, I was struggling to see if I was going to make this a premium pick, taking Tampa over. I won last week. The week prior, I didn't because they couldn't execute in the red zone against the 49ers, or the week that was 3 weeks ago. Either way, that bet has played out pretty well so far this season. I agree with you. It'll probably get over. All right. Next up, we have the Browns travel to LA to face the Rams. Feels like an old school 1960s NFC or championship games before the Super Bowl. The Rams are favored by 3.5, and the over/under set at 40. DTR remains in concussion protocol, and Flacco took the snap. 6 players on the defensive side of the ball are questionable. And after giving up 29 points to an average offense in Denver, looks like their D is breaking down a bit. The Rams are going in as healthy as they've been all year since 2003. The Rams lead the series 4-1. Two out of 5 of those games went under 40 points. Offensively, these teams thus far have played about the same. Difference has been the Browns defense, which sits at right now at 7th in scoring allowed. And if they had an offense, they'd be much better. I like the Rams straight up due to the questions at the quarterback position and the problems on defense for the Browns. Jeff, who wins in LA this week?
This is one of those that I talked about. The analysis from just a data perspective is different than what I think due to injuries. I think the injuries in Cleveland have taken such a toll, and the injuries getting healthy for the Rams changes my data. I'm going the Rams in this game, but I would stay away from the point spread. I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, you're giving up 3.5 points to the Browns. That's scary stuff. I'd stay away as well, but I do think the Rams get the win. So it's not the game of the week. It's the game of the year, Jeff. 49ers take on the Eagles and are favored by 3 on the road with the over/under set at 47.5. The 49ers come in on additional rest and a 3-game winning streak. The Eagles coming off a huge win against the Bills, essentially knocking them out of the playoffs in a 5-game win streak. Swift, Brown, Smith, Jones, and Gobbert are questionable on offense for the Eagles, as well as Davis, Cox, and Cunningham on defense. Armstead and Buford are questionable for the 49ers. Look, I like San Fran here. Not sure any team can score 20 on them, and seems like their offense is good enough to put up 21. Feels like this is a 24-17 game, and the Eagles lose their second game. Jeff, who do you like here?
I think this is the one game that San Fran circled more than the Cowboy game. I think they want revenge for the playoff game that they should have won had it not been for the injury to Purdy. And I think Philly is probably not as hungry. They've got a couple of game lead on both Dallas and San Fran. They've got the tiebreaker with Dallas. I think San Fran is going to come into this game and take care of it fairly easily.
It's one of my premium picks. That's
Same.
For sure. Next up, the Chiefs travel to Lambeau and take on the Packers. Are favored by 6. The over/under is 42.5. The Packers coming off a big win against the Lions, and they're coming in with additional rest. Jones and Dillon are questionable, and half the defense is questionable. But it was the same last week, and they pulled out the win against the Lions. This is a bad position for the Chiefs, Jeff. I don't like their spot. These two teams are 2-2 since 2011. Offensive production is about the same from both of these two offenses, and the difference is the Chiefs defense, 3rd in the league and giving up points at 16.5 a game. And here's their MO. They keep teams under 17, under 20 points, usually around 17 or less. And then Mahomes has enough talent to get like 20 and they win the game. And that's been the Chiefs' MO pretty much the entire season. Despite the bad spot, I like KC on Sunday night to win, but I don't know. I think Green Bay could keep it inside the spread. And 47.5 or 42.5, I think Vegas got a spot on. It's either going to be a little few points above or below, depending on how the Packers do against that defense. Jeff, can Love keep it close this weekend? Pull out the win?
I don't think he pulls out the win. I do think Kansas City is going to be too hungry with the way they played recently to let that happen. But I agree with you. I would say the point spread is within 1 point of what I expect. I think the over-under is right on target. So I think Vegas got it right. I think Kansas City wins, and I wouldn't work on the spread.
All right, we finished up Monday night with the Bengals, who are basically out of the playoffs. Unbelievable. Traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jags. The Jags are favored by 8.5, and the over-under is set at 39. The loss last weekend to Pittsburgh knocks Cincy out of the playoffs, given the upcoming schedule. Browning played well in the loss, but the Bengals team, they just lost their sales. He's not going to be able to get it done. He's just going to be serviceable and get him through the season. 2 scores seems too many, though, Jeff, for the Bengals defense. They still have some pride. I like the Jags to win, but I like the Bengals to cover. Jeff, do the Jags dominate on Monday night?
I've got the exact same differential. I've got Jacksonville winning. I've got Cincinnati covering. And I'm going to go with that as a premium pick because I think Cincinnati defensively really matches up pretty well here. So I expect this to be close.
And Jeff, I didn't hear your free pick. What was your free pick this week?
So I had meant to change it. I was actually going to take Dallas, but realized that we didn't have a podcast until after they started. So I am going San Francisco over Philly for my free pick.
Nice. And I am going under the Dolphins and Commanders 49.5. If you can get it at 50, all the more better. All right, let's transition over to our picks for this week. I think I got you from last week. Let's see if I can keep that going and get back in there. So we're going to start off. I'm taking the Cowboys over the Seahawks. Jeff, what do you have?
I've got Dallas.
I'm taking the Titans over the Colts.
So I am taking Tennessee there as well.
I'm taking the Pats over the Chargers.
I've got the Chargers. This is one of our differences.
I got the Saints over the Lions.
I've got Detroit, another difference.
I got Jets over the Falcons.
And 3 differences in a row. I'll get Atlanta.
Yeah, 3 different, all those meddling teams. Although I wouldn't say the Lions are a middling team, but they played like it last week.
That's true.
I got Steelers over the Cards.
Same.
Dolphins over the Commanders.
Same.
I got Broncos over the Texans.
I've got the same.
I got Bucks over the Panthers.
Let's see. I'm pretty sure I had that. Yes.
Rams over the Browns.
Correct. That is one of those that the injuries made the difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't put a dime on that game. I'm just betting it because I have to bet something straight up with you. I got the 49ers over the Eagles pretty easily, actually.
That's my free pick.
And I got Chiefs over the Packers.
Same.
And I got Jags over the Bengals.
Same here.
All right, we got 3 differences. Let's see what happens. Hey, rookies. Hey, we're getting toward the end of the season, and we're going to go into playoff mode, and that's where Jeff and that's where our analysis really pays off. So if you want to hit us up, $75 on hit us up on rookiesbeatbookies.com. Shoot us an email. Jeff, give you the last word.
This is the point of the season where you start to get ready for the best teams and the worst teams to make you some money. So got a couple more weeks of some really close games that I need to watch and analyze, and then it should cue us in for the rest of the season and the playoffs.
So, Jeff, just thoughts on over-unders. Are we going to start seeing more overs, or do you think we're going to start seeing more unders?
I think we're going to start seeing more overs. I think that's another thing that the NFL looks for is increased scoring towards the end of the season to keep people involved, because you do start getting some teams out of the playoff race, can tend to get a little bit of complacency in fans, but I think it typically bumps up at the end of the year so you can keep the interest.
I also think that as younger players get more of a chance and they get more reps in practice, they're able to showcase their skills out on the field and score some more points. And I think the books have really brought the totals under. Although
Yes.
that being said, I'm going with one of my first unders of the season with Miami Commanders, so I don't know what I'm doing here as far as that goes, but I still think that one's getting under. All right, rookies, have a great week. Good luck.